All right, we're Track Talk and we're back with another live playthrough of 1830. It looks like all the players have started playing, so we will resume the auction live now. I'm going to be taking a bid on Zeppelin's D and H in order to avoid a quick ripcord here. Hopefully he will then prevent Grimaldus from doing the same, but we'll see if he's looking towards that. The CNA is in a kind of tenuous position here if someone drops the ball and allows it to go for face. Um, so hopefully Zeppelin is aware of that danger. It looks like he is. So Grimaldus here, he actually pulls, which is really bad news for everyone that isn't Bada Boom. So Bada Boom's going to be walking away with two quite expensive privates here. And Grimaldus runs the risk of leaving with the B&O. So he has secured $5. Zeppelin has 10. So if I don't win this Delaware and Hudson, I will be probably taking the B&O, which I'm not eager to do. This gives Zeppelin quite a bit of power in the auction in terms of price enforcement. If he bids it up too high, I will just resign myself to the B&O. So I'll probably go up to 110 max would be my guess. And so I'm pausing here, which is a real-time game. This is giving him some information that I'm hesitant. If I bid again, I imagine he'll pass and I'll get it for 120. I think that I will pass and just resign myself to the B&O. Really don't like that play from Grimaldus. I think that's a huge mistake. So Bada Boom, does he take the Camden and Amboy? It is two expensive privates. He's kind of forced to, otherwise I will just take it. So either he gets to face Camden and Amboy or I do. Obviously I'd love to have it, but don't imagine that's what we'll be seeing. It would be ironic if he passes and then Grimaldus is stuck with the B&O after that bad pull. This is the problem with online play, is that you really never know if the other players are of quality. Bada Boom is debating this a little bit. Probably not AFK, just wondering whether or not he really can take this Camden and Amboy. I think he absolutely should. He would have 325 afterwards, so he would even be able to float. No, you need 335, so he'd be $10 short, but he'd have a ton of private income, could just sit on his cash and float in stock round 2 with two great privates. So I think this is not as hard a decision as he is making it. As expected, Bada Boom takes the CNA for face, and I am left with the B&O. So really, oops, not meaning to pass there. I will buy that. And we will par it high. So I probably am the loser of that auction, I guess. But Grimaldus is not in an amazing position either. He only has the Schuylkill and will not have the ability to jumpstart his game with an expensive private buy-in. I don't know if I would say that I'm the loser necessarily. I think it's just that Bada Boom is the winner through no fault of my own. I think this highlights what other players have said, that in these online plays with random people, you really have to just bid on the CNA because you never know what these other people are going to do. So Zeppelin making a decision about what he wants to bid. Probably I would be looking at the CNO. He has the D&H to teleport it if needed, and he instead will be taking the PRR. So felt obligated to prevent Bada Boom from floating an SR1. In this kind of situation, I think Bada Boom has such an advantage that floating an SR1 is really not, going to change the outcome that much. Grimaldus taking the NY&H. So I'll pass, look to float the B&O in the next stock round. And Bada Boom is also passing. So we'll see two companies floating in SR2. I could, in theory, float a company other than the B&O. I'll have more than $402. So if the C&O is available, maybe I'll try and take that instead of the B&O. and just let someone else float it. So the other companies have now floated, and I assume that I will be going second in priority. Probably Bada Boom will be looking to take the C&O in the next stock round, would be my guess. Is Grimaldus gonna buy into this PRR here? He's actually going to buy a share of the B&O. Doesn't have money to pressure the presidency, so I will let him just waste his money there. And we'll see if I'm able to get the C&O. I should not really be able to get that. I think that would be more misplay from the other players. Is he going to be laying friendly track towards the B&M? He is actually cooperating with the NYC, so if the C&O is taken, I could actually take the NYC now and cooperate with the NYNH. That may be more appealing than taking the B&O. It will allow someone to steal the B&O from me, but the B&O is at risk of not getting into Lancaster, so I don't know that I care that much. Does he take the C&O here? He's sold out of the PRR. Makes sense. And enough of the two trains have been bought that we should see a private buy-in here. We really just don't want Bada Boom to be operating last, so I'll try and par under him. He takes the NYC. In that case, I think I will take the C&O. Although, with the C&O having a late start, I could have a much better chance of getting the B&O into Lancaster. The problem there is that I will be then buying the two trains for Bada Boom. He's probably looking to, do a quick private buy-in and then par another company. So which company is he going to be looking for? Does he want the B&O or the C&O? The problem is if he gets the B&O, then B&O can get into Lancaster and really screw the C&O. So I may be stuck taking the B&O here, unless I can somehow prevent that. I don't think that I can. It's funny, when the game goes off the rails in the auction, you get yourself into some weird situations that you don't really encounter super often. I imagine that Bada Boom is going to be, buying as few trains as he can, and then just buying in his expensive privates. And I want to float after him, so maybe I'll take the C&O, force him to buy the trains for me, and then hope to defend the presidency of the B&O down the road. So operating order is going to be NYNH operating last, which is good for him, but he was the player that doesn't have any privates because of his actions in the auction, so it really doesn't matter. So I'm very happy with the current operating order. Grimaldus sells down the B&O. Who knows what this player's doing? He's just a force of chaos. And I may look to snap up that B&O share by selling the C&O after it's floated, just to further secure my presidency in the B&O. I'd love to keep both of these companies. I mean, the B&O is not a bad company, and if I have the control of the C&O as well, then I will be able to, control Lancaster with those two companies. Grimaldus is helping Bada Boom float. I have no idea why he thinks that's a good idea. And if he sells him down, if he's trashing the shares, then he's going to help him operate last after me. I don't know. This player's a real liability. Zeppelin doesn't really have cash to do much with in this stock round. I really hope that Grimaldus is just going to sit on these shares if he's going to do this and not sell them down. I don't really want to sell down the C&O too far. I'd be happy to sell it down once, obviously, and hopefully get a B&O share. But so he does. Hopefully he does the same to the C&O, so that what is he doing? This is just very chaotic, bad play. Hard to understand what's going on here. I don't know why you would do that. So I guess he's hoping to have the B&M have a chance against the NYC in terms of track development, but that's never going to happen. He can't float the B&M with the current amount of cash he has, so it's just mind-blowing. Bada Boom going to be happy to take the help. It helps him maintain priority and also is going to basically give him the advantage he wants in the operating round. So I am stuck continuing to buy the CNO. And I will be going last in priority and have to run the risk of buying the trains for the NYC now. I'm obviously going to sell down a CNO. If Bada Boom buys only 5 shares and then sells down, he will leave that presidency a little bit vulnerable. Unfortunately, I don't think anybody's in a position to really take it. So Grimaldus has, for the second time in this game, put us all in a really bad position. Zeppelin auto-passing. Of course, if I buy and then sell and Bada Boom doesn't preempt this, he will lose priority into the next stock round by selling his shares. So he bought a 6 share and didn't sell it down, so this gives me the opportunity of getting behind him in turn order, and he will sacrifice priority for that. So that's the one silver lining here. Zeppelin, his auto pass was broken by my sale, so he may have been AFK. He passes now. Grimaldus, hopefully just passing for the rest of the game. I'm tired of his actions. Bada Boom, does he see the danger here? Not danger, but the kind of suboptimal position that the NYC is in. He does not, where he just values going second to last in priority. So I'm passing. So thank God that I was able to keep the CNO after the NYC at least, despite the best efforts of my opponents. So he tokens in Lancaster, which is fine. I'm hoping to be able to get the CNO and the BNO into Lancaster and not need to lay a token there and just take advantage of the track he has laid. So that means that the CNO may be just rushing down to Lancaster instead of running towards Chicago. I do have $30 of private income, and these other companies are not running that hot. So it may be worthwhile forgoing that nice Chicago run, at least for the time being, just to try and accelerate my progression. NYC going to force the NYNH to lay its track for it, and he is hoping to get it down into Reading and Allentown fast. So he will need 3 track lays to get there into Lancaster if the PRR is not interested in cooperating, which I have to hope he is going to prevent. NYC kind of rethinking things, maybe more willing to link up with the NYNH. Looks like he does. So he's going to buy a single 2 train, so that's fine. And do I lay Agron here? I think this buys me time, right? I can start heading to Chicago. And in what? So he's going to be looking to manipulate turn order and operate after me, get into greens probably. I actually don't have to buy a 2 train here. Grimaldus, I just don't trust him. He might buy a 2 and a 3 to buy in his cheap Schuylkill Valley, even though it really does nothing for him. So the question here is, do I run into Lancaster? I'm not going to be able to float the B&O here. It needs $300, so I could sell out of the CNO, just waste all of its cash, lay kind of unfriendly track, make it unattractive, and then hope to withhold into the yellow with the CNO and float the B&O. Let's try that. So I will actually be the one to buy into green then. Let's waste this tile, start heading to the east, and we will buy into green. Well, it's not going to leave me no cash in the company, so someone would be happy to steal that. Oh, this is tricky. Well, I think that I have to buy a 2 train there. just for runs. NYNH would be very happy to see him not buy a 2 and a 3 here. But he may be motivated to just to get into green. I also don't think he's really aware of the consequences of his actions, so probably not paying attention. Not going to lay any track, really doesn't have any options. Going to run one train because he can't lay a token in Albany, and that may be a motivating factor for him to buy into the greens, which is a gift to the other players. And he passes, so that's a small blessing. Zeppelin has money for shares. Who's he looking to buy? He buys an NYNH. Okay. Grimaldus. Hopefully not interested in manipulating turn order again. That would be annoying. He's going to buy an NYC. Please do not tank this share again. Bada boom, does he sell a share? I think he should have done that last stock round. Maybe looking to do it now. I could buy and then sell a CNO to maintain the order. But it's going to be a lot easier for him to buy in now, so I don't know that it matters that much. What is he looking to do here? He could just buy a paying share in the PRR or the NYC. Sorry, in the NYNH. He's debating it. He actually has the most private income in the game by a good margin, so he's really not in any rush to rust anything. So if I go here, Bada Boom will continue to have priority. I could probably just sit on things here. The B&O market share is a little bit attractive. It's a little bit cheaper than the other shares, but I think that I just take second in priority here. It will make Bada Boom second and last in priority, which may be good just for the health of the table. So maybe I do buy that market share. I could also buy an IPO share, which make it a little easier to float. I don't think anybody's in a position to really steal this company from me right now. Bada Boom, if he buys in all of his privates, can. So maybe I take the cheap market share to secure that presidency. I don't want Bada Boom to snipe it from me. He's going to be going ahead of me in priority no matter what I do. So why don't we take the market share here? If anybody wants to steal this from me, I think I have a reasonable chance of defending. This is a slow start for me. I'm not going to be running very well. CNO usually runs much better than I will be getting, but I'm trying to play for the late game here. Keep a lot of company cash, get good routes, and get some permanent trains into these companies when other players push. I'm not really in a position where I need to push. So that's nice. Bada Boom's going to be sitting on 89 bucks there. I could have bought another share. So is prioritizing having not giving me priority basically, which I don't think is that important. So he actually gives me a big help there by linking me up with the Pittsburgh. So that is much needed help. And I think that hopefully I will be able to get good track for both the B&O and the CNO as a result of this. I think that people are tempted to lay track just to lay track, and they don't always recognize, the longer term implications of that. Sure, it gets him an extra $10 on his run, but is that $10 actually $5 for the president relevant, in the long term, in the greater scope of the game? So he buys into the threes and will be buying his privates. That is a little bit unfortunate. I would have liked to have seen Bada Boom do this. But if I'm able to maintain control of both the CNO and the B&O, which I am thinking I will, then there's going to be limited companies for these other players. So the CPR is not at all safe. He does control the ability to suitcase that company, so maybe he'll be looking to do that and just try and force an early bankruptcy. But the B&M and the Erie are not going to be very healthy companies with the way the track is developing. So we'll see what they want to do. NYNH running pretty well now that he was able to get into green. He actually really helped me with that Albany lay. He's laying it away from Lancaster, so there's going to be no competition for the Reading and Allentown and Lancaster tokens or tiles, at least until NYC gets upgraded, which is going to just slow them down a little bit. So this is working out fairly well for me, I would say, after a really brutal auction. He buys 2 3 trains. Is he hoping for a quick 4? NYC could buy 2 of these 3 trains, would not have money for the 4, and definitely is not looking to do that because he wants to buy in his privates as soon as possible. So the C&O will be able to secure itself a 3 train, and that's good for the B&O when it floats. It will not have to buy a 3 or a 2, and could potentially just get a quick 4. So yeah, bad play from these players is affecting everyone equally, I guess. It's what goes around comes around. So he's just a chaotic player. NYC, only 1 train. Probably going to be just passing track here. I don't imagine he wants to lay the New York tile. He can't run through it. Not going to be able to get to Rochester without buying in his private. So could do that and then lay that track, I suppose. But is he really competing with the Erie? I imagine that he may be starting the Erie. So maybe just looking to leave Rochester friendly and open. Kind of put in a rough spot by that Albany lay. And going back to that Albany lay for a moment, you're the NYNH player. You've just bought 2 3 trains, and yet you've laid Albany so that you can't double run out of New York City. What is the rationale there? Please explain that. Very weird. NYC is passing track and running his single train. He buys... Oh, so he's just undoing his actions. He's going to be building a loop for himself into New York. I don't think he really wants to do that. He's not going to have enough money to pay full value for his privates. And he also wants to buy a 3 train here, or else he runs the risk of falling back. So can't even buy the CNA for full value with the result of that track lay. I don't think that's a necessary track lay for him to make here, unless he's trying to help the B&M, but there's no track lay in green that will get the B&M into New York through that yellow tile. So that doesn't seem very worthwhile. He may just content himself with the Mohawk and Hudson buy-in, but could have had a ton more cash than he does. I'd be very happy to see him not buy the CNA. It hurts the PRR, the C&O, and the B&O because we can't get into Philadelphia, but that's a very short-term problem. He'll have $378. Could look to sell out of the NYC and pressure the B&O, but it's going to be very expensive for him to do that, and I think it makes it a lot more likely that I'll be able to defend the fact that he doesn't have all the cash from the CNA. So I will link up and get into Lancaster here and skip a token, obviously. Just running for 40, and I need cash, so I'll pay this out. And I'll buy the last 3. Do I buy the 4s here? We'll see companies floating beforehand. I don't think that I... So if I do buy a 4, I will guarantee that these other companies won't be running their 2s. It also makes the C&O, I think, a little bit less attractive. It has less company cash and no permanent trains. So maybe easier to sell out of this company to defend the B&O, which I imagine I will have to do. So let's go ahead and do that, and we'll see what happens here. I don't have any privates to buy in, unfortunately, so we are now into the next stock round. I am by far behind in cash compared to Zeppelin and Badaboom. We'll see which of these players wants to try and compete with me for the B&O. I imagine it's going to be Badaboom. Zeppelin doesn't really have the cash to be a serious contender here. Could see him sell out of the NYNH for a little bit more and then sell a share in the PRR or something like that to try and float his own company, but it'll be a low float, so he may be looking to just spread his cash around, which it looks like he is. Grimaldis, similarly doesn't have much cash, locked up a bunch of capital in the B&M, which is a low float, maybe looking at a bankruptcy from this player. Doesn't have a whole lot of money in his NYNH and has very little ability to rescue himself with the B&M. So he's also train locked himself in the NYNH with the threes. So he's in a pretty bad position, unsurprisingly. Also didn't even buy in his private. Not that that would make a huge difference. He's going to buy a C&O from the market. Okay. Bada boom. What is he looking to do here? Does he take the presidency of the B&M? That seems like a bad move. Could just float a whole new company with the sale of the NYC. Could also be looking to try and take the presidency of the B&O. If he does that, I'll let him float it, and then I'll buy a fourth share by selling a C&O. And I will probably ride or die with the B&O. I'm not going to let anybody take that, I don't think. So bada boom, maybe giving me priority into the next stock round, which I would be happy to have. And Zeppelin probably still spreading cash. Limited options for investment. NYNH can be floating up. We'll be running pretty well with 2-3 trains, at least in the short term. Maybe seeing this player withhold a little bit. I mean, he's in quite a dangerous position. Bada boom, hopefully continuing to just spread cash and not pressure the B&O. I would love to keep both of these companies. Bada boom, thinking about things. Could sell the NYNH, just tank that share a little bit, and then still pressure for the B&O. Really not affecting the NYNH's value very much. And Zeppelin will probably just buy it right back up. He looks like he's invested in the NYNH. But he's thinking about his options here. So he buys a C&O, will be paying, so it has 2 pretty good trains, reasonable track, so maybe just looking to spread his money around, which again, I'm continuing to sit on the B&O private income, have that company locked up, have the security of knowing that Lancaster is not going to be tokened out in the near future. So this is all fine for me. I imagine that we'll see the PRR upgrade Lancaster here, in which case I will get to lay the Reading and Allentown track, and I will certainly not be laying it with the intent of allowing the NYNH or NYC to run south. So could be a very strong position for me. I'm a little bit nervous about company cash. The C&O only has $100 and 2 non-permanent trains, but the B&O, of course, has a huge treasury potentially, so not in real imminent danger. The other players continuing to buy the C&O. Bada boom. Could be looking at trash shares, just eat up my capital and net worth, and then transition over to the B&O. If he puts a lot of shares into the market, it will make me unable to defend the B&O, so that may be the strategy he's going for. But if other players continue to buy the IPO shares, he's not going to have enough shares to flood the market. He's passing. I think that's too passive. Does Zeppelin buy a share here? Bada boom really is not eager, I'm sure, to be sitting on $244 after buying in the M&H. That would be, that's functionally the value of the M&H. So the private buy-in would have had no impact for him if he does this. Zeppelin, does he buy another C&O? C&O is not being dumped. I don't think they have to worry about it. He buys an NYC. So they are playing safe here. Bada boom, seeing this, maybe looking towards the C&O, but he's going to pass. So Grimaldus will have priority, kind of irrelevant, and I'm fine with this. B&O is still safe. Oh, wow. Okay. So I may be getting away with murder here. Does he upgrade Lancaster? I think you have to. But I guess could also just lay unfriendly track for the B&O on the yellow tile here, or upgrade Pittsburgh. But I don't know why you wouldn't upgrade Lancaster. You're running that track, so it helps your run, and you are going to want to do it eventually. So he does. Okay. Perfect. So I will be able to lock down Reading and Allentown for my 2 companies. And I think it's becoming increasingly likely that I will be running both the C&O and the B&O, which is very nice for me. Doesn't have the money for a 4, would have to withhold. Don't imagine he's eager to do that. So maybe just paying out. He's the sole investor in that company and letting the sole market share and the private income in that company slowly work his way towards 5-train money. He actually does withhold and buy 4 there. That increases the likelihood that we will see a train rush in the next stock round or the next operating round after new companies have floated, which really puts Grimaldis in a dangerous position, I think. So we'll be getting 2 runs into New York just by a very circuitous route. NYC will have the onus of upgrading New York City and only has 1 train, so probably not motivated to do it for the NYNH. Probably just happy to let the NYNH upgrade that track, and then since he's operating afterwards, we'll be able to take advantage of it. Because he bought in the MNH, he does have the opportunity to start getting into Rochester. But again, I don't know how much of a priority that is for him. He doesn't have a whole lot of other track to lay, so maybe see that happen. He will be heading towards Reading and Allentown, but it's going to be too slow. So not going to be getting any help there. I can guarantee that. Pretty cash tight and is going to pay out. So we will, of course, be taking the Reading and Allentown. What am I looking for here? I think that is the track that we want. And then I will probably drop a token in Pittsburgh to allow me to run both my trains. I think I have to do that. And then maybe the B&O can pick up another token in Pittsburgh down the road. If the PRR drops a token there, it's not really the end of the world, I wouldn't say. So C&O going to be running a lot better as a result of its 2 trains. We'll pay that out, need a little bit of income, and now I'm free to start working towards Chicago. So if the NYNH upgrades New York, it will not only benefit, and he does, so he benefits the NYC, he also helps the PRR and the C&O, just really amazing. The C&O, unfortunately, yeah, it will be able to reach there. So that's great. As I said before, his misplays are benefiting the whole table, so can't complain too much. Running for 200, which is pretty good, but he is fully invested by the other players, so he's benefiting them as well as himself. PRR, he is still sitting on the Champagne and St. Lawrence, so he may be looking towards that CPR in the late game. Again, if he really pushes trains, we may see a bankruptcy. The net worth should be pretty even here, though, so I don't know that he can guarantee that he will win if someone bankrupts. He's actually lagging in net worth, it looks like, so probably not really eager to do that. And he also is happy to help me with some track upgrades. He will have 2 trains to run just like I do, so he'll be running for the same amount, presumably. And now I have the opportunity to just lay some friendly track for the B&O. Probably will lay a soft turn or a sharp turn into Lancaster for the B&O. Get him some runs into the New York track. I think that's more useful for me than heading towards Chicago. Have the whole game to get into Chicago, and it's not going to increase my run that much. NYC doesn't have a whole lot that it can do. May want to lay some nasty track for the B&M. Could also just start working on towards Rochester. The one thing that I have to worry about is a float of the Erie, and then Erie getting into Lancaster via Pittsburgh. I will take a couple of operations to do it, but maybe I need to revisit my thought in terms of the B&O friendly lay. Maybe I lay a gentle curve into the B&O to get into Pittsburgh and drop a quick token there to secure Lancaster, New York, and Philadelphia for the late game. So he will be working towards Rochester, and he pays out. C&O now. I think, given this, I will go ahead and drop that and just run the same route, basically. The 4 train can hit into New York. Running for 200, paying that out. That's great for me. And I am very close to having cash to float the B&O now. Maybe if someone wants to help me, I will not have to sell a share to do it. Not eager to sell to the C&O, it's running pretty well. So we'll see what happens here. Grimaldus could dump the NYNH, which would be very funny, but it looks like he's going to be just looking to float the B&M. B&M and NYNH are not going to be very synergistic in this game because he has already tokened in Albany. It is nice for the B&M that the $120 track has been laid, but again, it's going to be hard for him to get into New York until Brown with that track. So really just not a great company here. Bada Boom has enough to float without selling anything. Does have his choice of companies, but none of them are great. Not going to be able to take the B&O, and the CPR and Erie are not very attractive. He may be looking for the Erie, but the Erie is not going to be getting into Pittsburgh. And if he takes the Erie, he's going to be leaving Rochester open, which will help the NYNH down the road. So he does take the Erie. Are we just going to be looking for a quick train rush and trying to bankrupt someone? He is not far enough ahead in net worth to really guarantee that he wins if that happens. So I think that I will be... There's 2 4 trains left. There's going to be 2 new companies floating. So if the B&O doesn't float here, I'm in a little bit of a rough spot in terms of surviving a 6 train. I do have the 4, so I'm probably not going to go bankrupt here, at least in the next 2 operating rounds. I could sell and float the B&O here. That will really accelerate trains. Maybe I just buy a C&O here and see what the other players do. I'll buy an IPO share of the C&O and see if Zeppelin is going to be also floating a company. You know, if the 5s come out and I miss out on the 5s, I think that's okay, because I will have money for a 6 and a good amount of money towards either another 6 or a D train. The 6s are going to put a ton of pressure on these other players. The NYNH and NYC don't have permanent train money. So let's just kick the can down the road and buy one of my own IPO shares. Worst case scenario, I sell that, put it in the market, and you know, get $3 from doing it. It's not hurting my net worth at all. Zeppelin now. What's he looking to do? Unfortunately, he knows that by buying a B&O share, he just guarantees it floats, and he's not going to be able to take the presidency. So he's left with the CPR. CPR will be a suitcase as he controls the Champlain and St. Lawrence. So he's selling out of the NYNH, and probably will be taking the CPR then. So we will probably see a bankruptcy in this game, because I think a lot of trains are going to fly off the shelves here, and I don't know that the other players are going to be able to survive. I think I'm okay. So I probably will, I mean, if he does float a company here, I will be forced to float the B&O because I need that cash to survive, I think. Let me see. I will have a 4, so even if the 6s come out, I will be okay. If the 6s come out, the NYNH will need one, and the NYC will need one. So someone will be on the hook for a D train. But they may bankrupt before the D train affects me, in which case I probably would win if one of these other players bankrupt and I just pay out with the C&O. C&O is going to be operating before the B&M. So the B&M is the company that's going to be trying to push through some trains. So I think I'm okay. I don't think I have to float the B&O here. Maybe I just buy paying shares and then float the B&O and bankrupt someone in the next operating round. Because Erie can buy 2 4s, and then the B&M would be left. Oh, I see. So the CPR can then buy 1 5, and the B&M can buy 1 5. So they can't even push into the 6s. So I think I'm secure here in not floating the B&O. Get the private income one more time, and then float the B&O and rust the 3s, or grab 2 5s even. So I'm just going to be looking for paying shares here. Which company is most likely to pay out? Probably the PRR is a good bet. Bada Boom, maybe withholding for some extra cash. PR, well, he's going to be floating for 1,000. but he's also operating first, so he's going to have to buy a 4. Well, I think I'm just going to buy paying shares here. Bada boom, continuing to float the Erie. PRR is running pretty well. NY and H, I just don't. This player's totally unpredictable. I don't trust him to pay out. So I'm going to buy a IPO share. I'm going to buy the market share of the PRR. So I will have a bunch of paying shares. These other players are going to have, 5 or 6 shares that won't be paying, at least in the first operating round here. I just need to be careful that I don't buy shares that lock up my liquidity and leave the B&O vulnerable. So for instance, buying this PRR share is safe because Zeppelin can only put 3 shares into the market. If I ever put myself in a situation where there's 5 market shares and I can't sell a share that I've bought, I will be at very high risk of losing the B&O. That said, a lot of players have unsellable shares in their presidencies of these new companies, so maybe we'll be okay. I think this is the right move. Zeppelin continuing to float the CPR, and Grimaldis probably will just see him continuing to buy the B&M shares. He's going to have some cash left over after floating, so maybe look to pick up a cheap share. It's back to me now. I could buy an NYC share, but I'm a little bit worried. He'll probably pay that out, and he'll probably be buying a train with the Erie and then running it with the NYC. So maybe I better buy an NYC here. If I buy this, I will have $66 left, which will not give me enough money for another share. So if I buy a IPO share, then I will have money for 2 shares. So let's go ahead and buy an IPO share. If he sells down, he does have the opportunity of locking my liquidity up, but I think he's so invested in the Erie right now, it would be very challenging for him to steal the B&O. My last share could buy another NYC. With 2 shares in the market, I'd be safe from a dump. Grimaldis could make that dangerous for me. He's already sold out, so he couldn't buy any of those market shares. So maybe that's what I'll do. Zeppelin just debating whether or not he wants to buy the share, maybe forgetting he has to hit pass. And probably Grimaldis. No, I guess Zeppelin will be going last in priority, so I will be going second last. They both have 2 shares left to buy, so Zeppelin probably will be going last, yeah. Grimaldis buying his last B&M will give him an opportunity to buy 1 more share afterwards. May look towards the C&O for that. B&M has floated. Bada boom, close to floating. I will buy a second NYC here. And Zeppelin going to be 1 share away from floating after this operation. Grimaldis looking at his last share here. Does he take a C&O? Would be safe from the dump if he bought from the IPO, which he probably should. So he passes, but it's silly. Zeppelin will be floating the CPR here. And are any of these players going to sell down a share in order to buy a paying share? I almost always do that when I float a company in 1830, but it does potentially cost you priority. Zeppelin doesn't care because he's going last anyways, so may see that. He's probably debating it. He does sell, okay. And what does he look to buy? He could also not buy the NYC, so he may be looking towards the C&O, which he does. So that's what Grimaldis should have done. And if Grimaldis buys it now, he'll lose priority, but he will open Zeppelin up for a dump, which may make Zeppelin uncomfortable and force him to sell. Track talk passing, Zeppelin. Probably passing here. Okay, so let's see how this train rush gets off here. Erie could look to get into Pittsburgh, but I should be able to block him with some track lays with the C&O. So that was something that I didn't think of when I neglected to float the B&O was that risk there. But I think that if I lay nasty track for him, he will have a hard time. It's going to take him 3 track lays, including this one, to get there. So I should have time to cause him problems. And he's actually laying up towards Rochester, probably to cooperate with the NYC and try and build, good routes for both of these companies into these 00 cities, which is, not the wrong move at all. But it does give me breathing room at Pittsburgh. So that was a little bit of a risk that I had failed to account for with the B&O. He does buy in his second private now, so this is great. This is going to mean that the train rush is going to be even a little bit slower, because he doesn't have money for all these trains now. He has $380. If he withholds, he will have 440, because the most he can run for is 60. So, well, that's only true if he doesn't lay friendly track for himself with the NYC. So he may have enough money for a 5 train with a withhold in the next operating round. We'll see if he's able to arrange that. Lancaster, or PRR, is looking to get into Chicago in the late game. I am happy to allow that for now. He doesn't have any way to drop a token in Pittsburgh, so if he lays track, that may eventually be helpful for the B&O. I am all for it. The CNA has been bought in, which opens up Philadelphia and Trenton, so I will be laying that track. Oh, so he actually realized that and will be laying track. Why does he lay it that way? That's not good. He may be just leaving that open for the B&O to get a no-dit run into New York, and he is guaranteeing that the PRR will not have that, so that seems silly. Whatever. I will take advantage of that, I think. He is withholding. Unfortunate for me, I did invest in that company once. Maybe he's second guessing that and will pay out. So he could do this differently. He could lay in Philadelphia and Trenton running down into Atlantic City and then token in Philadelphia and Trenton to deny me that. Of course, the CNO would operate first. Does the CNO have money for a token? It does not. So that would be safe for him to do. I don't know. I think this is not a good track. Obviously, I'm a little bitter because it hurts the CNO a little bit, but I guess you can't get everything you want. NYNH, does he link up with Rochester here, or does he try and hurt Rochester? Hopefully, realizing that Bada Boom runs both of these companies and is going to be a little bit motivated to help. So he's laying track for the B&M. This track is not going to help the B&M very much. It does get an additional $30 for its run, but he's not getting through Albany. I guess it helps the NYNH in the long term as well, because eventually he'll be able to run towards Boston. He's paying out, so I'm regretting buying the PRR instead of the NYNH here, but that was a little bit unpredictable. Zeppelin can buy a 4 and a 5 here. Probably will. PRR is close to permanent train money, but it will be train locked, so not going to be able to pick up the 2 5s. But since he has to buy at least 1 train, well, actually he doesn't, so he doesn't have a route yet, and he also laid the $80 token, so $80 track, so he's not going to be able to buy the 4 and the 5 if he wanted to. If he wants to do that, he really can't lay that track. But maybe resigning himself to running the CPR, even though he controls the Champaign and St. Lawrence. Probably thinking about all of these things right now, and deciding whether or not he's, forced to run this, or if he's going to be happy to suitcase it. Could shuffle trains out of the PRR and allow it to buy the first 5, which probably would be a good move. Leave the CPR as a suitcase, get a permanent train into the PRR, which has good track despite the way he laid Philadelphia and Trenton. So maybe that's what he'll do. I think that's, having thought things out, I think that's what I would do. We'll also force the B&M to buy that last 4 train for him, so wouldn't have to waste money on it that way. I think that, not to be overly confident, I think I'm in a strong position in this game. I think I should be able to win this. I'll float the B&O in the next operating round and bring out at least a 5, if not the 6. And I think the other players are going to be in a world of hurt when that happens. I'll just be paying out with the C&O here. Should be able to pull ahead in terms of net worth, and then if one of the other players bankrupt, they'll just win. And even if they don't bankrupt, I'll be in a good position for the late game with excellent track and good trains, good companies. Am I ahead in terms of stocks? So I have 12 stocks. I am tied for last, but the difference is only one stock. And these other players' stocks, all of them are not paying out at least one operating round. CPR may not pay out for 2 operating rounds. So it looks like he is kind of cozied on to the strategy I described. He bought a train out of the PRR. We'll be looking to probably buy some 5 trains into both of these companies. He is rethinking things. He probably wants to give enough money to the PR that I can buy 2 5s. It would fall back, which was, again, unfortunate for me since I bought a share in this company. But he does have the cash to do that. That would probably guarantee a bankruptcy if he ends up with 2 5s, because then the 6s are going to be really hot on their heels, and the other players are not going to be able to survive that, I don't think. Again, since I have a 4 train, I'm feeling relatively secure in terms of surviving the 6s. Bada boom. So he does buy a train out of the PRR, and the PRR will have enough money for a 6 if it needs it. Also has the money for a token in addition to a 5. So maybe looking to withhold on the CPR one time and get a second 5 train if he's given that opportunity. No guarantees, of course, but just playing it safe. Hopefully Bada Boom pays out here. Would love to see him do that. He controls 80% of the revenue of this company, so I would not be a fan of withhold, and I'm not just saying that because I'm invested in the company. Can he get into yellow with withholds? No. So he does pay it out, which is great for me. Doesn't have money for trains. We'll be leaving the last train for the B&M to buy. So where am I heading here? I really don't want the Erie to head down here. No imminent danger of that. So maybe I just start laying towards Chicago. I didn't really think this out very much before I played. Yeah, so we'll just pay that out. Getting a little bit more cash into the C&O just from that market share. It's only $2 or whatever, so it's not really relevant in the long term, but always helps to have a little bit of extra cash. B&M probably going to be forced to buy that Poison 4. Could shuffle a train out of the NY&H, but just going to be splitting his trains amongst his shares by doing that. I'm sure he's not eager to buy the 4, but may be forced to. I think he's in real danger of bankruptcy. If he doesn't buy the 4, he's in a better position, but if we stall on the 4, that's fine for me as well. So he combines all of his cash into the NY&H, and he does buy the 4. So he will have to withhold to bring out a 5 here, but this will open up the 5s for the rest of the players. So he will secure himself a 5. But unfortunately, he's train locked in the B&M. Also, unfortunate for him because the NY&H has some pretty good track to run with 2 trains, but he'll only be running one of them and also withholding. Did I invest in the NY&H? I did not, so I'm glad that I did not. At least I catch a break there. Erie also going to be looking to withhold and buy a 5. Probably going to be linking up with Rochester just to get a run would be my guess. The NY&H is happy that the Erie and the NYC are owned by the same player, because that means that it's much more likely that the Rochester token will be left open. And probably see a withhold here for the second 5. Is anybody in a position to bring out the 6s? Not really. PRR will be buying the last 5, and then the CPR doesn't have the cash to withhold for it. So I will be forced to buy 6 with the B&O, which will rust the 6 in the C&O before it runs. Well, not necessarily. I could manipulate the operating order a little bit, and if the C&O floats up, it would operate before the B&O. So I am looking at a 6 and a D, or 2 6s. I'll have $1,000 in the B&O. So a little bit of a dangerous position, but if I don't buy a D train, who's going to be in a position to do that? Really no one. The PRR is going to spend all of its money here on the 5. CPR is going to be withholding very measly runs to eventually buy a D. So if I buy a 6, the CPR will have to buy the second 6, I see. And then the NYC will either buy the D or shuffle trains out of the Erie. But if he buys the D, he might just go bankrupt. So that would be fine. How does he have so much cash? Or how much does he have so much net worth? I guess it's just from his private buy-ins, because he hasn't been running for very much. All right, so we missed the Erie. He shuffled trains a little bit, actually did not buy a 5. Is the NYC going to be able to scoop up 2 5s? No. So NYC is going to be falling back again. This is unfortunate for me. I guess, you can only predict so much. Hard to really guarantee that any of these companies are going to run the way you want. C&O, well, the PRR is going to operate first, so depending on how he upgrades Pittsburgh or Philadelphia is going to kind of determine a little bit of the value of the B&O in the long term. But he can only upgrade one of these tiles, so I will probably be able to get a better run into New York as a result. Maybe the New York City or NYC will upgrade New York and save me the effort there. B&O did rust the private, but I was able to get the private revenue from it in this round. So pretty good value on the NYC. I am loving the Philadelphia lay this way. This is just an $80 track for me to get into New York. He could drop a token on Philadelphia, which would hurt it a little bit, but really not the end of the world at all. I can still get into New York, and I will then be having a much easier time of tokening in Pittsburgh. So he tokens, that has to be a mistake, right? Why would you token there? Where is he hoping to go? Looks like he intends it. I would love to see that. That's just a wasted token. Well, hopefully he pays this out, and then NYC operates and he doesn't get to leave a token in Philadelphia. That would be pretty awesome. Very strange play there. So NYC has money for a 5 train. And is there 1 5 left? There is just 1 5 left. So I will not be getting a 5 this game, but I think I'm in an okay position and ready to withstand that. NYC. Does he upgrade Dunkirk? He upgrades Albany. Okay. And I don't believe there's a track that is available here to get a second run into New York. So New York North was crippled by the track decisions of the other players. I will open up New York, I think, and maybe B&M will drop a token there and just waste it. This helps my run a little bit, and I think I'm just going to pay this out. I get 70% of it. Am I heading towards a bankruptcy for myself by doing this? I don't think so. We may not see a bankruptcy. I think that it's going to be hard to bring out the D train after I buy a 6. CPR will potentially have to buy a 6, but is not going to have cash to do it, so we'll either have to e-buy it or shuffle a train out of the PRR, which I think is going to disincentivize him. And these other players all have 3 trains, so they're not going to be running 2 trains. So I think I'm okay to pay here. and then we'll see what the CPR player wants to do. Is he going to lay himself a track, or is he going to be happy to just suitcase this? He does give himself a run. Does he withhold? He is in a little bit of danger here. Would love to see a withhold. I'm not eager for someone to go bankrupt. I'm not assured a victory if that occurs. CPR pays out. In B&M's operation, he will upgrade to get a run into New York and does not leave a token, doesn't have cash to do it, is running pretty well, and we are into the next stock round. Grimaldus buys a PRR, will be running 2 trains, has a permanent train, so good decision. And Bada Boom is now up, has 2 companies, only has 1 permanent train, and doesn't have enough cash really for anything. The NYC is pretty safe to still hold. I'm not too worried about that. Looks like the C&O will be floating up, potentially has opportunity to operate before the B&O now. So I will just be buying my B&O shares, I think, and looking to bring out that 6 train. He will be operating after the Erie, so I may be motivated to buy and sell an Erie here to rust that 3 before it has a chance to run. It would be very nice for me if the C&O operated, then the B&O, then the Erie, and everybody else. So they are buying the NYC shares. NYC should still be safe to hold, even without priority on Bada Boom. It will be hard for it to operate after the Erie without several withholds, which I think will probably tank his chances in this game. Not that he's in a great position to begin with. So I will continue buying the B&O here. Oh, actually, yeah, I will do that, and then I will tank the Erie right before I float the B&O. Gives myself a better chance of having priority in the next stock round. B&M is being bought up. Badaboom has a ton of cash. He could be looking to trash the B&O a little bit. It will cost him $10 for each share he wants to do that for, though. So maybe a little bit of a disincentive. And I don't know that that would be the end of the world for me. It may give me priority into the next stock round, which I would be happy to have. Net worth is pretty close here. Bada Boom leading as a result of his private buy-ins. Is Grimaldus going to do my work for me and tank the Erie? That'd be pretty nice. Probably just looking towards safe investments. So he buys a B&O, floating that for me. He may be looking to trash the B&O, which is fine. So I'm not going to buy another B&O share. I will buy an Erie, and I think I'll immediately sell it. I think that he has kind of cottoned on to my strategy here. So I will sell that down. And is there anything else I want to do before that? This is going to start a trashing war, I think. I don't want to hold this share, though, because I'm worried that Grimaldus is going to be trashing it. Zeppelin. Let's see what he wants to do here. Wouldn't be upset if he bought and trashed that Erie share. Not that he necessarily has to. I could be reading too much into this. I mean, the B&O is going to be a great company. It would not be unreasonable to buy shares in it. However, just the fact that he's buying it in the stock round where it floats makes me think that he has bad intentions for me. I imagine he's going to be trashing this stock. He's going to buy an NYC, so that'll be floating up as well. Grimler. He is passing. Don't know what he's hoping to accomplish. Bada Boom probably buying more B&O here. Probably buy 2 more shares and then trash it. Which does hurt me, but probably not going to change the outcome, I don't think. And Bada Boom only has 1 token, so he's only going to be running 1 train, even if that 3 train survives. So he's not, really super motivated to have the Erie operate before the B&O. Maybe he just wants some paying shares in the B&O. I don't know. If I was him, I would be trashing the B&O probably, at least once or twice. But we'll see if he wants to. He will surrender priority to me if he does that. So he's probably weighing those options. What am I looking to buy here? I don't have to buy any more of my own shares. So I could buy... He is buying more B&O, so I think this really means that we'll be seeing this trashed. If he trashes it 3 times, it will be operating at 71, so behind basically everyone. Everybody's 3 trains will get to run as a result of that. Zeppelin buying the NYC will be floating up. And I have one more share to buy. What am I looking to buy here? Definitely not the CPR. So bada boom, maybe not trashing my shares? That would be surprising. So I don't think I want to buy a PRR. Zeppelin could dump that. Not going to be eager to dump it, I don't imagine. Maybe I buy an NYNH and hope he doesn't withhold. It'll be running pretty well. Let's try that. And I've left myself enough money for a B&M. Not that I'm going to buy it, but it makes it look like maybe I would buy it. So Bada Boom may be willing to take a stock action and give me priority. That was not intentional. I didn't do the math to figure that out, but it is a nice consequence of the stock values being what they are. Zeppelin thinking about things. As a result of his investments, he's going to sell C&O, not eager to have me float up. I'm a little bit sad to see that, but I imagine that one of these other players may be looking to buy that. It's not a super safe investment because it doesn't have a permanent train, but I mean, there's no way I'm dumping this company. So does he look to trash my shares here? Grimaldus is passing, bada boom. What is he looking to do? I mean, this is his opportunity to buy a second share and trash it. I'd prefer him not to, obviously, but it wouldn't be the wrong play necessarily. I think he's losing priority here no matter what he does. Unless he just sits on 156 bucks, which probably would not be a good move. So what I'll say here is that, if he buys a share, then I have the option of passing, and all these players that are invested run the risk of having stuff dumped on them as a result. So he actually does take an action. This leaves him cash for a share, but I think that I would be happy to let him have the share and take priority. What would I be buying for $67? Just a B&M, and that is owned by Grimaldus, who I am not eager to be invested in his company, so I will pass. Zeppelin, is he going to trash my share? He might be eager to just go second in priority. He may be passing here. I am a little bit behind in share density, which is a fear of mine, but I think there's enough life in this game that we are okay. We're going to see a bunch more trains bought, and the runs are not so amazing. I think we have at least 3 operating rounds left, maybe more. So Zeppelin, I think he's okay to just pass here. He may tank the B&O, which would be unfortunate for me, but looks like he's going to pass. So it's up to bada boom. So I have priority, which is wonderful. Is that the first time that's happened in this game? PRR operating first, doesn't have a 3 train, so not really in risk of rusting anything. And I only have 1 share in this company. Zeppelin is going to be running quite hot. Does have cash for laying the track for the B&O. It's not unreasonable for him to lay that. I mean, it helps me a ton, but it also gets him a run into Baltimore a little bit earlier. I imagine he'll just be upgrading Lancaster, which would probably make the most sense. He's going to be running 2 trains out of there. I don't understand this token from him. I don't know. I don't think he's a bad player. I just don't understand why he did that. Regardless, he doesn't have enough money for a token, so Pittsburgh's safe. I think that the B&O will take that token. Now, if the B&O falls back, it will operate after the C&O. So I don't have to buy a train over from the C&O this operation. I can do it in the next operating round, consolidate some cash, and get the B&O 2 trains, one of them being permanent. Of course, when I buy the 6, I won't have a train to shuffle. I could buy the 4 out of the C&O and make that a dump opportunity for someone. I'm not going to dump it, obviously, but it may make them a little bit nervous about buying a second share, leave that in the market. So I'll probably do that. And then I can try and force buy the second 6 or a D train with the C&O. Who's going to buy the 6 if I... Zeppelin could out of pocket it. He's not going to be eager to do that. Especially, I think, he has given himself a run, so he would be forced to shuffle a train over. Yeah, we'll see. I don't really want to buy a D train if I don't have to. I think that would be very costly for me. I wouldn't necessarily have to. I would have 2 trains. So I think I'll shuffle the 3 out of the C&O here before I buy the 6. So he does upgrade Lancaster. That's fine, it helps me. And he'll be running 2 trains. He's going to be running really well until that 4 train rusts. He's going to be only doing this one time. He either has to buy the 4 over from the CPR or buy a D or 6 out of pocket. I don't think he's going to be eager to sell shares to afford that 6. Don't imagine that we'll be seeing him withhold here. I think that would be very painful for him. In terms of net worth, I am trailing, but just barely. Bada Boom is ahead, but his advantage from the buy-ins has mostly evaporated. He's also quite close to his cert limit, so not going to be running away with shares in this game. Zeppelin really debating whether or not he wants to pay or withhold here. If he withholds, he could then shuffle trains into the CPR and buy the 6 with the PRR, which wouldn't be the end of the world. Is he looking for the D train upgrade here? A little bit unclear. Not sure where he's going with it. He probably does want to bring out the D train eventually, because otherwise there's not going to be any incentive for the C&O to have a permanent train. A lot of undoing and redoing here. He's really deliberating. This is the interesting part about real-time play. I mentioned it in the auction, but your undos, the time you take to make your moves, really kind of give the other players important information about what your intentions are and where your future thoughts lie. So he runs for 340 and he withholds. So probably looking to shuffle trains with the CPR and get additional cash there. If he does that, he will actually have enough money for the D train upgrade. So we will be seeing a D train, and he will not be able to bring that out before the C&O runs in the next operating round. So I will be safe in this operating round. So I just need to make sure I have enough cash. I think as a result of this, I am not able to afford a token in Pittsburgh, which is a little bit painful. But if the PRR is pushing for the D train upgrade, he's not going to be able to do it either. So we will have opportunities later in the game. So I need 630 here. I think that I need all the cash I can possibly get into the C&O as it's looking at a D train. So I will give it 369, right? Is that correct? And buy the 6. Erie running 1 train, would have been running 1 train regardless of my actions there, but it is nice to rest the 3s before they can run. And the C&O probably will be withholding here in an effort to get closer to D-train money. Well, I can pay here and then withhold on the next turn, which may be the stronger play because I'll get 2 runs of the 4 that way. If I don't do that, the 4 will rust because I'll operate after the PRR, so I think that's what I have to do. Also, Bada Boom is not safe here, so he needs to look towards a D train of his own. If he bankrupts Grimaldus, does he win? No, he should not. I mean, it's going to come down to where the operating order is in terms of um, who gets the trains here. So that's interesting. If the NYC out of pockets a 6, the CPR will then probably be shuffling trains. Yeah, so he's still going to be shuffling trains. He's going to have a D and a 5. Erie paid out. I am not invested in that company. Grimaldus is on the hook here. So we should be seeing the PRR bring out the D train. CNO will be safe, at least for the time being. And the next operating round is where things will get a little bit hairy. I think if the CNO and the BNO run, I will not be in danger of losing if someone goes bankrupt. So that's promising. Running a 5 train does have a train, does have track for a 5 train. Where is he heading with this track? Who laid the, is the Erie the one that laid this? E13. So that is that. So maybe looking to get a token down in Pittsburgh. Could even token Lancaster if I'm not careful. So I need to be very aware of that and lay some bad track here to protect myself. B&O is going to be operating after Erie and after the NYC. So I'm only gonna have one track lay here. I think that I cannot protect that, which is pretty devastating. Is there anything I can lay here to prevent that from happening? They do open themselves up to a token in Rochester if they're not careful. So who has money for a token? NYC does, and we'll potentially be able to lay that. Does he operate before the B&O in the next round? He will, and I also didn't leave money for a token, so that's painful. Well, we'll see what I can do. So if I lay that, or is it better to lay this, and then potentially get a, if I lay it this way, no. I'm just trying to be careful here not to give them an easy run into Pittsburgh. Unfortunately, I don't know that there's a way I can block them with a green tile. There's a lot of upgrades available. I'm going to think about this for a minute. I really would like to see them not run into Pittsburgh. So if I lay that, then I could lay with the CNO a diverging track and look to prevent them. They will have a way in with Erie, but Erie's a DIT, so if I get that with the B&O, I'll block them forever. What is operating round? So Erie is going to operate first. He will have an opportunity to upgrade here, but I will, if he does that, I could potentially token in Rochester to protect this. So I think that's my best move, unfortunately. I will not token, and I will pay out. And that will give me a run. So if I buy the 6 there, no, doesn't make sense. NYC looking to help the Erie out. Erie does not have cash for a token, so I'm not worried about the Erie. I'm worried about the NYC. And CPO, oh, so he tokens there, which does mean that the NYC will not have money for a token. So I'm good, at least in the near term. NYC is selling a bunch of stuff. Is he? He's not bankrupt, but is Zeppelin bankrupt? He is not bankrupt. but may choose to go bankrupt, and that will be really funny if Grimaldus walks away with this game. He should not walk away with this game. Zeppelin is, of course, not bankrupt, but that will be the height of irony if the worst player in the game wins as a result of the decisions of the other players. So he does shuffle, which is nice. So he falls back on the CPR, which is putting him out of contention for the win, and when he upgrades for the D, Grimaldus will have to buy a D train and bankrupt. So I think I will win this game. Let's see. If he withholds here, maybe he survives a bankruptcy. He is laying track to bypass Albany in the future, but also token out of Rochester, so not a whole lot of long-term potential for the B&M. And he runs for 160. Does he pay it out here? He withholds, so probably not going to bankrupt then, just because he has $1,100 of liquidity. If someone else sells shares before him, could see a bankruptcy, but looks like he'll be safe. And I think I am also safe from a bankruptcy because I will withhold on the C&O here. Erie cannot help the NYC, so that NYC token is really going to hurt his prospects of getting down into Pittsburgh, because I can lay a DIT on Erie and then upgrade the Pittsburgh track with a B&O, and nobody can stop me from doing this. So I have saved myself, fortunately. NYNH, hopefully will be paying out here since I am invested. He could withhold and shuffle trains to get a little more cash in the B&M. He is going to be on the hook for a D train, I believe, in this operating round. I fortunately have skated past without it. I don't think it makes any sense for me to buy the 6 out of the B&O and bring out the D on the B&O, does it? I would have to sell too much for that, unfortunately. And I would lose the game when someone went bankrupt. It would hurt Zeppelin. He's not going to be able to get that upgrade if I do that. But where is he going to be running this D train? I guess in the PRR. PRR, unfortunately, is going to be probably tokened out of Pittsburgh. Not going to be able to token and get the upgrade in this round. So his runs are not going to be that amazing. And then he will be more motivated probably to lay towards Baltimore. NYNH really considering things here. He doesn't have too much interesting track to lay. Could be looking to bypass Rochester, but it's going to take him a long time to try and work around there, and there's no guarantee that it ever works. Looks like that's what he's looking towards, but the NYC and the Erie are owned by the same player, so if they don't want that to happen, it will be very easy for them to block it. Hopefully, and he pays out. That helps me and hurts him in terms of affording the D train, which he will be on the hook for. So I need to make sure that they do not have any options here. And how do I best accomplish this? So if I lay this track here, they can never run through that, and then the Erie can be upgraded. They could lay this $100 token to get in there. So if I lay this, there is a brown tile that will get them through into here, which I don't really want. And if I lay this, there is a brown tile that will get them directly into Pittsburgh, so definitely don't want that. Sorry if this is boring to watch, but I'm just trying to think of my options. This is obviously not going to be the option. This would block them pretty convincingly, and I could potentially upgrade it so there's no gentle that will get them in either. So I think that's the play. We'll do that. And gonna withhold for 600 or 160, I think. Do I just pay this out again? I think I have to withhold. It's a difference of 20% of the revenue. And I can buy up to my cert limit with a payout on the B&O probably. So I think I don't pay this out. Will it change? So I'll fall back to 70 if somebody sells a share here. Um, it's where I struggle. I will, I think, withhold this to be safe. I now have the operation of this, and I will just play it safe and block the Erie player. And I'll run my 6 train. So do I have to do that? Because this makes my 6 train not really that good. If I upgrade into Baltimore, so where's the Erie going to be operating? He's going to be operating first. I really do need to take that to prevent him from getting in there. He doesn't have money for a token, but I just don't want him to have that option in the future. So this is how I lose games. I play too conservatively, and I cost myself money as a result. So I'm going to be running pretty crappy 6 train for the time being until I can upgrade Baltimore. But let's pay it out. That is unfortunate. NYC has been blocked out. And who is going to be getting this D train? The PRR and the CPR are going to have to be colluding to get that. PRR, does he have easy ways of blocking me in the B&O? So he could upgrade this to prevent me from getting the upgrade into New York. But again, I do have this $80 trek that I can lay to get there, so not the end of the world if he does that. It will be a little bit painful though. NYC, probably kicking himself that he was unable to get down into Pittsburgh. I am assuming he was quite eager for that. Running a 6 train will have a better 6 train run than I did. Not hard to achieve that though. My 6 train was pretty anemic. So the NYC lays a gentle curve, looking to get into Scranton. Will be tokened out, fortunately, by the PRR token there. Could be looking to eventually get into Lancaster that way, which would not be ideal for me, as I'm hoping to leave that untokened. PRR, he actually drops a token, which means that he will have to withhold for this upgrade. But he also laid track that kind of makes Pittsburgh much less important for me. So kind of a confusing decision, or combination of decisions there. He's going to leave the upgrade and not token, probably hoping to get that D train. I think he has really positioned himself where he has to bring out this D train. So thinking better of his track and leaving a token. So that's a much worse scenario for me. Not really, but is he just going to let the... No, so he withholds. I have 1 share invested in this. So he has brought out the D, and I assume we'll be running the 5 with the CPR. So Zeppelin is in a rough spot now in terms of net worth. He has fallen behind as a result of falling on the D train. Left himself $150 in the PRR, a little bit inefficient. Not sure where he's going to be looking to lay that track. Maybe looking to open up a run north here? I can't imagine that's the case. So Grimaldus is on the hook for a D train and has enough cash to do it, I believe, but will be eliminated from this game, which is fortunate for me because I have priority, so I can buy up a bunch of his cheap shares. Is he going to have to sell down into the brown? If that happens, that will be amazing because I will have found myself a D train. We'll see what he does here. So not going to be bankrupt, and has enough company cash that, or enough presidential cash that he should not have to sell the B&M down into the brown. But we'll have to sell quite heavily. Unfortunately, because I withheld on the CNO, if he sells the CNO, I will be falling down a fair amount. So he actually just shuffles. And he has the NY and H. So the NY and H is going to be forced to buy the D. He doesn't have to sell as many shares by doing that, but he's falling back on both of his companies. Erie will pay out here, which means that he will be able to get the extra cash from that as well. I actually did not realize that there were 3 operating rounds in this set, which is a huge mistake from me. So the CNO is not going to be able to survive without a D train here. So I will also have to sell shares, I believe. Fortunately, the B&O has a run, and I will be able to run for a lot more. So I could just shuffle the C&O's money into the B&O, fall back once as a result to do that. But I neglected the fact that that was the case, so that was a miss on my part. And NYNH is now in the position that the B&M was in. He sells an NYC, sells the C&O, that hurts. Selling a lot of stuff, as we expected. And he's going to be running a D train in the NYNH. NYNH doesn't have D train track, so really not a good situation for him. C&O is going to be on the hook for a D train and needs $440 for it. How much money will I get with the B&O right here? So does it make more sense to upgrade? I think it makes more sense to upgrade Baltimore, actually, because then I can run both ways. So Pittsburgh, Baltimore. And if I withhold this and then buy the train out of the B&O, it will have D-train money pretty well. Oh, I don't know why it loses your run when you change screens like that. So I think I withhold here. And then I will combine trains. The C&O will be able to buy the 6 train out of the B&O, and then I'll run the D train with the B&O, which will have good track. So I think that's what I want to do here. Yeah, that's fine. NYC, $0, does have a market share. This will also leave me cash in the next stock round to buy up and hit my cert limit. Probably going to be looking towards the PRR in terms of purchases. Nobody's open for a dump. I just need to be careful that nobody manages to get a token down into Lancaster. Would prefer not to drop a B&O token there, although the C&O would be okay with a 6 train running into Chicago from Baltimore. Not entirely sure what Bada Boom is doing with his track right here. Maybe just looking to pressure. So I am going to want this track for the B&O eventually, I believe. Is it really that important? Not really, actually, because I can run through Lancaster. So maybe I'll just work on getting into Chicago for the late game. Could also make sure that this doesn't happen. And lay some tragic track here. So there shouldn't be an easy way for them to get through there. That may be too conservative. I mean, they have 2 track lays and they need $120 before they can get there. Neither of them have the cash for that, so I don't think I need to defend access into Pittsburgh or anything. Pittsburgh has also been tokened, so that's kind of irrelevant now. So don't think I want to help the PRR player get into Chicago. Probably just need to lay this track here to get into Chicago with the C&O and hope to block the PRR from the C&O track. All right, so we'll do that. We'll skip a token, and we will shuffle the train out of the B&O. So I will buy this for $660, pretty close to a permanent train now. And now we will just get other players to pay for our D train. Hopefully won't have to sell any shares. Only $150 short of the D train in the B&O. And I am in pretty good position in terms of net worth and share density. So I think that I have pretty much secured my game here. He lays a $120 token or track. Not entirely sure. Does that help his run that much? So PRR, let's back out of real time for a second and look at this run. PRR, what am I missing here? I think I hit the wrong buttons. Let's go into real time. PRR ran for 300. He did lay that Scranton track. And can I see what his run was now? I think because the other players are running trains, I can't. CPR, just so I don't miss anything here. CPR linked, upgraded Ottawa just to increase his run a little bit. B&M is no track to lay and is running his 5 train for 200. He pays it out, which brings him out of the yellow phase, but he needs cash. So I have priority here, nothing to dump. Am I worried about any dumps here? Not particularly. Bada-boom. NYC is far enough ahead, far enough behind the Erie that I'm not worried about that. So I think I'm just looking for well-paying shares here, and I will pick the PRR then. Unfortunately, it will be operating after the B&O, and there's not a whole lot I can do about that. If someone sells the B&O shares, so maybe that's what I should be doing, is buying and selling some C&O, B&O. I'll take the PRR first. Just looked for some hot-paying shares to buy my D-train for me. So what I'll try and do is sell down the B&O so it operates after the PRR. We'll have to sell down twice, but I imagine that we may see this share sold. NYNH, not really sure why we're seeing that purchase. It's not an amazing run. Over the PRR, I should say. So PRR will float up, and the B&O, if I sell it down, will fall down once. So that may be my action. I have one more share I can buy before I do that, though. And who is looking to pay for a lot? If I buy the NYNH, I do open myself up to a dump, and Cephalin is safe. So I don't know that I want to do that. Grimaldus is not played well, and I worry that he might be happy to dump a trainless company on me, even though he wouldn't have great shares to replace it with. So do I buy an NYC here after just criticizing the decision to buy that? I think that's probably my best option. And that will also float up and operate before the B&O. So it'll at least pay me for my investment. I have one more share to buy here. I could potentially just buy the B&O share out of the market. It's a safe investment. It will pay for itself down the road. It's going to fall back once, but it will leave me enough cash to buy the D-train without selling shares. So I think I'll just do that instead of selling my own shares. Cephalin is now at risk of a dump from the NYNH. NYNH, I don't believe, has track that really justifies his confidence in this company. No. So can run from Boston down into New York and Albany, and it'll have an okay run. If it's able to link up, if the players link up Scranton, that is a real fear of mine. So who could token in Scranton? Nobody without withholding, at least once. So I will at least be able to see it coming. I am a little bit worried about that. Can I upgrade Scranton so that it doesn't have the ability to get there? I would have to upgrade Pittsburgh so it couldn't get into Brown, and I think I'm going to be operating too late. The C&O was sold down, unfortunately. So I'm not going to be able to prevent that. What I was talking about is laying, an X city so that it can't just get down into Lancaster with $120. But so PRR does have $120. He could lay that track and really mess with me. Well, I guess we'll just see what happens. I could withhold twice on both my companies and get 2 tokens in that city, which I really don't want to do. So I think my fear here is leaving market shares for other players, which will let them get a token money. I'm worried about the Erie, the NYC, and the B&M. I'm not going to be able to buy all those market shares, obviously. So if I leave myself a market share in the B&O, it's much more likely that it will be able to have a token money. So maybe I buy a market share of the Erie here. Erie is not going to be running very well. So he may be looking to upgrade Scranton with an X here so that the Erie can run into it and improve its run, which will allow me to get the brown on Pittsburgh. So Erie is going to be running before the NYC, so it will not have that run in the start. So maybe I take a share from the B&M. Just take that market share. I don't think he's going to be withholding anymore. It's a cheap share. It's not going to run before the B&O is the only problem. But I will still have cash. I won't have to sell shares. Hard decision. I guess the short term favors the B&M, so I'll just buy that market share. All right, Zeppelin's at his cert limit. Could sell the B&O, but B&O is going to be a good company in the long term, so I don't know that he's eager to do that. Instead, sells the company that I just bought. Painful. That does give me another share to buy, though, so not painful, actually. Grimaldis, passing. And Bada Boom is going to float up the C&O. Okay, fine. And what am I looking to buy here? Do I buy that other yellow share? Should still be able to have cash. Maybe I do. And just invest everything. And then if I have to sell, I sell. But things will be paying into me for a little bit at least. So how much money am I actually on the hook for? I need $1,100, so 157. So buying this share won't actually put me where I have to sell, and then I could buy a cheap CPR and hope that my shares give me enough cash before the B&M operate or the B&O operates. There's going to be 3 companies operating before me, and I have shares pretty heavily in the NYC. I think that's safe to do, so let's do that. B&M is not a dump target, so I'll just be exceeding my cert limit, courtesy of Zeppelin. Zeppelin sells a CPR, and he's buying the market share in the B&O. I would have liked to have seen that stay there, so a little bit unfortunate for me, but that's okay. This does open an interesting possibility of, buying the D train with the B&O and then dumping it in the next stock round on Zeppelin and trying to force him into bankruptcy. I don't think that's going to be possible, unfortunately. So not likely to happen. I will almost certainly be able to buy my 6 share in the B&O in the next stock round if I want it. Unless they all buy now, which would be interesting. So I will buy a... What share am I looking to buy? I have enough money, so I could buy the B&O share now, which would be funny. Very funny. If everybody just invests in the B&O. It's going to be a good company. Well, where do I worry about this Erie market share? Zeppelin's train locked. Nobody's going to be buying more shares. So if I just sit on my cash here, I will have priority into the next stock round, I think. Is it worth having priority? Well, it will give me peace of mind. So maybe I pass. I'm still going to be the share leader. Is Zeppelin going to allow me to have priority? I'm going ahead of him no matter what happens now. So I do maintain priority. That's nice. I am just worried about this Scranton shenanigans that's going on. I do not want them to get into Lancaster through this $120 lay. I could always lay the B&O token there. It will hurt the C&O. And I've done such a nice job of blocking the north. So it looks like he is interested in heading there. Hmm. Nobody else is going to be able to do that. I mean, unless the NYNH wants to cooperate with him. NYNH could lay this and then look to get the brown tile that lays into the double O. Doesn't have any cash though, so not sure that he really wants to withhold to open that up. Does have a D train, so it wouldn't be crazy to do it. Huh. So he is cooperating. This means that Scranton will be able to lay into brown before Pittsburgh. Hmm. So he's going to increase his NYNH run. I'm just very nervous about that $120 track. Does the NYC have money for it? PRR does. Yeah, a little bit tenuous. I don't know that I can risk leaving Lancaster open. That will really kill the B&O if the Lancaster is left there and someone else gets a token there. The other players are not making it a cakewalk for me, as they should not. I mean, rightfully so. If he doesn't upgrade Scranton here, I'm in a much better position. So, but I don't see why he wouldn't. What else is he looking to upgrade other than Scranton? Maybe he could give himself a run into the double O with the NYC. Not sure. So, in terms of net worth, I'm okay. It's going to cost me, 150 bucks or give or take to buy this D train, but then after that, I'll be paying out, and I have good runs, good track. So he does upgrade Scranton. That is painful for me to see. And am I invested at all in the NYNH? I am a minority investor. I am heavily invested in the NYC. I'm just wondering if it makes sense to withhold on both my companies and drop 2 tokens in Scranton. It doesn't really help my runs that much. I could look to getting into New York North, but that would be another $120 lay. How much life is left in this game? So we have 2 runs, 2 O'ers left. I'm not really far enough ahead in terms of net worth to, I think, justify that. NYC paid out. So who am I worried about with the token? NYC is not going to have enough money. The Erie will have enough money in the next operating round if PRR lays that track. So I think I'm obligated to token in Lancaster, unfortunately. That really hurts. It just hurts the C&O quite a bit. Yeah. And do I have enough cash to not sell shares? I will. That's important. Yeah, I think that I am forced to secure my run here, unfortunately. Because the PRR is sure licking its chops. So if PRR lays this, I will have 1 turn without a token from Erie, but I will have to withhold and operate after Erie, so I can't guarantee it. I think I have to, unfortunately, lay that track. I can give myself a little bit of an out here with this. Maybe be able to bypass Pittsburgh later in the game if I am forced to withhold, but I do think I have to token that, unfortunately. So all the trains are bought. I don't imagine we'll be seeing any dumps in the game, and I will be, I think, making it harder for the PRR player to get into Chicago now. Fortunately, it is quite challenging to fully block them out. Could do that, and that blocks them there, and then I can get creative with that. So let's do that. I Fortunately, the CNO is not running too hot as a result of the actions of the PRR. What is the PRR looking to do with its $120? It does have a run into Scranton, and the fact that I've now tokened in Lancaster probably means it's not eager to... Okay, so he lays track into New York North and has a little bit of a better D run as a result. This D run is pretty good. I'm glad that I am a minority investor in the PRR. So maybe I would have been safe this whole time. Maybe I did not need to drop that token in Lancaster. This is what I'm talking about. I think I play too conservatively sometimes. He's actually withholding on the PRR. Is he looking to get into the yellow zone? He is. He's going to have to withhold quite heavily to do that. So probably not going to pay out for him. He's also withholding there. Is he hoping to bring in another D train? Why is he withholding on both companies? I guess just looking to yellow both of his companies. That seems like a mistake. Grimaldis is yellow. Will be leaving the yellow zone almost certainly, and doesn't have any track at all at this point to lay. Hopefully we'll just see him pay out. I do have shares invested in this company. My nearest competitor is Bada Boom, but I don't really think that he is going to be a real threat in this game. No yellow shares really, and no dump opportunities. Pretty bad track. So I think I'll be okay to overcome him. Grimaldis doesn't really have any decisions to make here, but is taking his sweet time regardless. The double dits that he's forced to run really, really hurt. That's the downside of the New York track. It kind of balances the revenue center. Not sure what the holdup is here. He is passing track because he really doesn't have any track he can lay, and hopefully we'll just be paying out. I would love to not see him withhold into yellow. I only have 2 shares in this company, and it's not a company that I'm really looking to hold long term. So I would love to see him pay out and just get my cash from this investment. If he pays out, I will sell out of the B&M and look towards the B&O and probably pick up some of these yellow CPR shares. Could also invest in the Erie. The Erie's run will be better now that this track has been laid for it. It's not going to be amazing, but it will be able to hit New York at least. Be funny if he dropped a token in New York. He won't because he's also being run by the NYC player, but that would be pretty funny. So B&M did pay out. Great. Erie. Where is he looking to head? Not entirely sure. I mean, could be looking just to optimize all of his runs, but I don't know that this is going to have a long-term impact. The problem is that people are going to have to withhold to make a meaningful change in the game state, such as by opening up the 00 tile. And I don't know if there's enough life left in the game to really justify withholds. In terms of revenue that operating round, I was last by a good margin as a result of the B&O, or having to buy the D train. But now I hope that I will be seeing myself bounce back. I am basically tied for second, and Bada Boom is slightly ahead, but he's 3 shares behind me. So I hope that my revenue will be adequate just to kind of inch into the lead here. Zeppelin is withholding into yellow. It looks like maybe in both of his companies. So he will be able to buy above me in terms of share limit, but unfortunately he only has 40% of the CPR, so I will be able to hop onto those shares along with him and reap some of the benefit. Also, enough of the shares have been sold or bought now that getting into yellow is going to have pretty limited dividends, in the sense that if you reduce your cert limit by like 8 or whatever by withholding both these companies in the yellow, there's not going to be 8 shares available for you to buy. So Erie is laying E13, so just kind of giving himself more options with that track. does allow the NYC to run from Albany into Rochester down into the Philadelphia and Trenton tile, assuming he's starting in New York. So the NYC is going to be running pretty well because he can run from Boston to New York, Albany, Rochester, and then down into Philadelphia. I assume he has a D train. He only has a 6, so that's going to be rate limiting for him. And I'm also pretty heavily invested in New York, so it doesn't really, make me too upset to see it running well. I am very disappointed by that token in Lancaster with the B&O. I did not recognize that the PRR was going to be heavily incentivized to get into New York. So I think that was probably too conservative of a play. If I lose this game, I may point my finger at that one. Erie running for 220, so pretty good as a result of getting into Scranton and New York. I will probably look to buy some of those shares, get out of the B&M. If only for the stock appreciation, as it's currently at 140. NYNH does have a D train, has a pretty good run. And running for 290. Zeppelin is heavily invested in there. I think Grimaldus is eliminated. I'm not worried about that player. I am a little worried about Zeppelin. Grimaldus is min-maxing his track here and does take the better run into Philadelphia rather than just into Dunkirk. NYC laying this tile here to get into this 00 city, maybe looking to bring out this 00 track down the road, but we'll have to withhold to do it. I suppose that the Erie may get enough cash for that. It will on its next operation, so probably looking to make that happen. That's going to help the PRR if he's able to finagle a way into that as well. So C&O, is there a way I can improve my run at all? Fortunately, not really. So I will probably just be looking to confirm that the PRR was never going to get in there, and we'll be just running for 200. The C&O is dumpable. That would be interesting to run a 6 and a D out of the B&O. It would be dumped on Zeppelin, who is not really my nearest competitor. It would also hurt Bada Boom. Bada Boom is pretty far ahead right now. I'm a little bit concerned about my prospects here. I don't think there's any interesting track for the B&O. And I will be running my D train. 270, so that's a little bit of a underwhelming D run. I think that token on Lancaster is going to come back to bite me, unfortunately. There is one operation left in this set, so I will have to decide whether or not it makes sense to dump the C&O. I don't think it does. I don't have the track to take advantage of it. And also, I think I would have had to withhold there to do it. Yeah, I don't only have $1 or $0 in the B&O, so I can't buy that train over without withholding. B&M, hopefully continuing to pay out. It does. PRR has some pretty monstrous runs and is withholding into the yellow, or has been. Is he going to do it again? Maybe he's just looking to bring out another D train. I don't really know what these withholds are accomplishing. I-17. So he lays track for the B&O. That's helpful. Will allow him to improve his run even more. So running for 470 now. Fortunately, I am the second most invested in the PRR. But that is concerning, the amount of money he's making there. CPR, fortunately, will be around to balance him out in terms of his portfolio, running for very little. And does he withhold again? He will have to if he wants to stay yellow. Well, he has to withhold at least once in the next 2 operations. So it looks like he's going to be racing towards the 00 as well, and he could drop a token there if the other players upgrade it. So Erie has to be a little bit careful about how he, you know, manages this track on Hamilton. He will withhold again. He is the sole investor in that company, so only really hurting himself because other players are going to be happy to snap up those yellow shares, myself included. And would like to see him end here so I can see how these revenues are playing out. Is he going to shuffle trains and try and get a D train and a 5 train in the CPR? I mean, he doesn't really have the track to take advantage of that. He's just doing a lot of withholding. I think this is probably going to cost him the game. So he's rethinking his entire turn. Maybe looking to link up with the D18 track and eventually get down into Scranton, which should be achievable for him. He's actually undoing his whole turn, so that is what he's going to be looking to do. It's going to take him a little bit of time to get there. Other players could block this. The Erie, I believe, will have $80 to block it. He won't actually this turn, so should be able to see him get there. He will have 2 tokens and companies with enough money to both double token Scranton, which hurts all the other players, doesn't affect my game. So would like to see him do that. I mean, if he's withholding into yellow in order to hurt the other players, that's, a big benefit for me. So there was a lot of back and forth from Zeppelin on that turn. He ultimately did head towards the 00 and did not link up with D18. The other players may have cottoned on to this because they saw his intentions, and they do have the opportunity to block that now. And in terms of revenue, so I am leading at 604 as a result of Zeppelin withholding. Zeppelin, if he pays out, may be able to contend with me. So the Erie has token New York, which hurts, I should say, the PRR and the B&M a little bit. I don't know that this is going to be enough to really reduce the PRR's runs in the long term, but it is going to cost it, at least $50. NYNH unaffected by the Erie token. And Zeppelin is heavily invested in this company, which is running quite well. So I am a little bit worried about Zeppelin's position in this game. I think that he may be able to come back as long as he continues to pay out well with the PRR. NYC has been tokened out of New York, but is not running a D train, so probably not overly upset about that. Hopefully it doesn't affect that run too much. I am heavily invested in the company. I would have liked to seen the Erie get into Hamilton and Toronto. I think that would have been better for him in the long term rather than dropping the token in New York. But he's not running D trains, so maybe he's just worried about opening the 00s up to the other players. May see the CNO or CPR take it upon itself to do that, though, for the PRR. PRR is going to have to work some magic in terms of getting into the 00 cities, though. Currently with the track, I don't think it has a run into Hamilton. And my operation, unfortunately, I think the track laying life of the CNO is mostly over. I'm not going to withhold to get a better run, I don't think. So unfortunately, I think I'm just focusing on blocking the PRR from ever getting into Chicago. Can lay some track for the B&O in the future. And I do I have a better run as a result of this upgrade here? Unfortunately, it doesn't look like it. Yeah, I'm already hitting all these cities. I guess I could hit this PRR city with the second run out of Philadelphia as a result. So that does help a little bit. Gives me an extra $50. Can't complain about that. Zeppelin has been tokened out of New York and will have to find a better run for himself. He does lay that D18 track that we were a little bit worried about earlier, and may be looking to really jump ahead with the PRR by linking up with the track laid by the CPR. He has pre-tokened in Ottawa, so I don't think the PRR has a token left. It does not. and the Erie probably will not be able to drop a token without a withhold. So the run of the PRR through Ottawa should be safe. B&M, this company has nothing left really to do in the game. Has been tokened out of New York, so it's running very badly now. And I will be selling out of this company in the next stock round. CPR does have money to link up with the PRR in C19, and we do see that track complete. So the PRR will be running for a little bit better, even despite being tokened out of New York. We'll see if the Erie player is willing to withhold to block this. The Erie player is, I believe, technically in the lead right now, so maybe incentivized to do that, but I think that if those two players fight each other, I will be able to win, so may need to be a little bit cautious. CPR's run is better than it has been by about 50. And does he pay this out finally? He looks like he will, so he'll be just yellow in the CPR. So I am above my cert limit. I will sell a B&M. These shares are quite bad. I'm not going to sell both just yet because I worry that if I sell both, I might be locking myself out of reaching my cert limit. I think it's unlikely. It's probably safe to do that, but still. So the best share available is technically the B&O. However, I do worry about letting these cheap yellow shares go. So I may just buy that and look to exceed my cert limit that way. CPR is running a little bit better than it otherwise would. Very close game here. If Zeppelin allows me to exceed my cert limit by enough, I may be able to eke it out, but I suspect I may be losing this just by a couple $100. In terms of cash, $6,000 left in the bank, so unfortunately we may be seeing 2 sets of operating rounds, and we are already in operating 8. This has ended up being quite a long game. So Zeppelin is going to be taking my B&O shares, and the B&O has sold out, so I lost the opportunity to buy another share of the B&O, which is an unfortunate event, but I don't know. I think that the CPR shares being yellow, I kind of have to hope to exceed my cert limit. So Bada Boom makes the decision to buy a B&M share. I don't understand that. That company is going to be running for the worst in the game and is also not yellow. I will buy my last cheap CPR share here, and then I'll be looking towards the Erie. There's 4 shares, so I should be able to snag at least one of them, and then I'll look to buy as many of the CPR shares as I can. Zeppelin is realizing that the yellow shares are valuable, and Grimaldus will buy an Erie. Bada Boom, does he buy an Erie? He's actually locked out of the Erie, so could be looking towards the B&M again, but would have been better for him to have bought a CPR in the last round. I don't know why he passed that up and took a B&M instead. He will be cert locked soon. So I think I will continue buying CPR rather than jumping on the Erie because Zeppelin is not worried about his cert limit and it's just going to be buying these shares to deny them from me. Bada Boom cannot buy the Erie. Grimaldus could, but he's eliminated. So I think I will just buy the cheap CPR shares for now. It's also a safe investment, not going to be dumped on me. I think now that Zeppelin has invested heavily in the B&O, I will be forced to withhold once, lay the $120 track into Scranton that I was worried about, and then token in Ottawa just to mess with the PRR's run and improve the run of the B&O. It's going to cost me, but it only costs me net 20% of the revenue compared to Zeppelin, and I think that the harm to the PRR is going to make the difference in the game. It's a very close game, and Zeppelin's going to be equal to me in share density, it looks like, so I need to be very careful in how I play this next operating round. I will continue buying the CPR shares as soon as Bada Boom passes. So I think the way this is playing out is I will be able to get one more of these CPR shares. It doesn't look like these other players are prioritizing them, which will give me a 40-60 split with Zeppelin. Grimaldis may be looking towards the Erie here. He is able to continue buying Erie shares because he's in no danger of hitting his cert limit. Unfortunately, my sale of the B&M may leave me, well, I was forced to sell it. Otherwise, I would have sold a different share. I was just looking, if I'm not able to pick up one of these Erie shares in addition to the CPR, it may allow Zeppelin to buy a share on me and get one share ahead in terms of density. This game, unfortunately, is slowing down quite a bit. The players are taking a long time on their turns. I'm having to turn off the recording in between player turns quite often. Downside of live game, whereas in an asynchronous game, you can just walk away. So it looks like I will be allowed to. Oh no, Grimaldis actually bought the last CPR, so I will buy the cheap Erie and sell a B&M to do that. So unfortunately, Zeppelin is going to be able to get probably 2 shares ahead of me in terms of stock density. I think that Zeppelin is in a very strong position, maybe able to just win this game outright, but I will try to change that by withholding on the B&O. Hopefully Grimaldis will pick up the last Erie share here and force Zeppelin to buy the worse B&M shares. So a very frustrating decision. Both of these players are passing, allowing Zeppelin to buy better shares than he should otherwise be able to buy. Not entirely clear why these players are making this decision. I suppose that I am leaving myself open to dumps on a number of companies by allowing Zeppelin to have the last action, but I'm not particularly worried about it. So Zeppelin will buy probably that last Erie share. And then everybody will pass. I will be going second to last in priority. Very unfortunate outcome. He's 2 shares ahead of me when that was not at all necessary. So this also leaves Zeppelin open to a dump on the C&O, which if he is my nearest contender and is pulling ahead in the game, I will probably do in an effort to rein him in. It will give me the option of running 2 trains out of the B&O and also allow me to hold on to the shares which he may not keep yellow. Erie doesn't have any interesting track and will just be paying out. NYNH probably in a similar situation. I don't see that it has much it can do. May look towards Ottawa and getting into the 00 cities, but we'll have to withhold in order to do that. And again, I'm going to be withholding on the B&O, laying the G15 track and tokening in Ottawa in an effort to get myself down into these 00s. So they don't know that obviously, but probably not the best move. NYC doesn't have cash, so if he withholds, or will have to withhold in order to do anything interesting with its tokens. And he is also paying out. C&O kind of done with track in this game and will skip and pay out. And then the B&O doesn't have any track right now, but will be withholding. Unfortunately, I don't know if this is the right move or not. If this was an asynchronous game, I would actually math it out and make sure that it makes sense. But in a live game, I'm just going to play a little bit fast and loose because I'm pretty convinced that Zeppelin will beat me if I don't change up the situation here. So does the CPR have? CPR has token money, but I'm going to force him to lay it on Hamilton and basically token the PRR out of Ottawa. B&M has nothing interesting to do in this game, should really just be playing very quickly. CPR probably will be laying on Hamilton and will still have money for a token after that. The B&O only has 1 token, so I'm not going to be able to defend Hamilton and block the PRR out of Ottawa, but I think my priority here is to block the PRR as I'm pretty heavily invested in the Ottawa, or in the CPR. Okay, next operating round. As a result of me withholding, I should be kind of far behind here. So I'm $200 behind Zeppelin and only slightly behind Boomtown, or Bada Boom. Erie, it looks like these players are going to play a lot faster now. They realize that we're kind of in the end stages of the game. NYC could look to upgrade Hamilton here. Unfortunately, doesn't have money for a token, as I've commented on ad nauseum, but may look to at least get a little bit of a better run for itself in the near term, which helps me as well because I am invested. The CPR payout, CPR did pay, so going to be working probably to stay yellow, but we'll have to withhold twice to do it. CNO just paying out. This also gives me money in the BNO to dump the CNO if I need to. So I think that I may be okay in this game still, but let's see. With the token in Ottawa, I'll be able to run 2 trains out of the BNO much more effectively. I'm almost hoping that the CPR does continue to pay out and does not stay yellow, because that will force me to exceed my share limit, and I will be able to dump the CNO, which will not be paying. So he does lay that track for the PRR, and will be running very hot this round, but fortunately I withheld last round, so we'll be able to prevent this from ever happening again in this game. He may be realizing the danger he's in, or maybe he's just confirming his route. So he's going to run for 530, which is pretty dangerous. Now I lay this track here in token in Ottawa, and I have a better run now. So let me figure this one out. Instead of running into Philadelphia, I'll run into Scranton. And unfortunately unable to run into New York through Scranton, as I've already used that token. But I will hit Rochester, running for 470. So hopefully that is enough to give me the game. If not, I still have the option of dumping the CNO, which we will certainly be happening if it's settled close. He's up by 300 on me. CPR, I expect to be dropping a token in Hamilton because he can't help. I see. So he's going to try and help himself with the PRR here. Fortunately, it's not going to be as good of a run regardless, and this also helps me potentially get into New York down the road. Is there a valid upgrade here? He'll need one of these tiles, basically. I think there are 2 of them in the game, so it should still be available. CNO might have the opportunity of taking it. Could potentially lay it here. How many of those are available? So is this the one he needs, the 45? I believe so. So I'll try and lay that here and see if we can prevent him from getting into Hamilton. He did drop that CPR token, which I was expecting. Yep, so I did block him. So he still can run into New York, but his run is much worse than it was last run, at least. Hopefully that will be enough to get me ahead. I probably will have to dump the CNO. And he has paid out twice with the CPR, so he's put himself in a position where I will be dumping the CNO. He's got to recalculate his route now. And really, this token from the CPR doesn't end the ambitions of the BNO, because I can look to get into Chicago now. Probably won't happen in this game, but not unreasonable to at least work towards it. And I think this is my best run. So only 400. CPR. He is going to lay C13. So maybe looking to bypass this DIT as he is not running a D train. Oh man, I missed the opportunity to dump the CNO. I was playing too fast, so that may cost me the game. The B&O should have bought the train out of the CNO there. That is unfortunate. He's $400 ahead of me, so he's going to win this game now. That was a huge mistake on my part. I think I win this game if I didn't make that mistake. That was a catastrophic error on my part. It wasn't a guarantee. Bada Boom could have sold out of the CNO to prevent it, but he is also losing to Zeppelin, so I don't see necessarily that he would have done that. Oh, that's unfortunate. That is a catastrophic mistake on my end. So what are the worst shares? The worst shares probably are the CPR, and if I sell them down, that hurts Zeppelin the most. So I think that's the move. Yeah. And Zeppelin is going to have to sell a bunch of shares. That's really unfortunate. I think that I lost myself the game by being careless and not buying the train out of the CNO. Oh well. Especially with these tokens coming out, the B&O can run, two trains more effectively because its run has been cut by tokens. So now that he has been forced to sell shares, I may be able to adjust my portfolio a little bit and sell some worse shares for better shares. He is selling the CNO. CNO was ledged, so it doesn't hurt me, but it's going to prevent it from floating up. And now everybody is kind of at their cert limit. Grimaldis can min-max his portfolio, but he's been passing in the past, so I don't know if he's motivated to do that. I could sell my own CNO and buy an Erie. It's running for better, so I'll probably do that. This should be the last operating round. He does buy an Erie. Bada Boom is locked, so will not be buying an Erie, so I'll be selling a CNO. I'm really kicking myself that I didn't think to buy that CNO train. That's going to cost me the game. Oh well, it's good to see mistakes on the stream. And I'm always so critical of other players. It's good to see me make a mistake that was entirely preventable. So he's selling the B&O, which is running very well. It does hurt my value. Will allow me to buy that share. So at least Zeppelin won't get it. Not sure why he made that decision. He's backtracking from that. Looks like there was some undoing. He's going to buy a CNO. I will sell down the CNO and buy the Erie. And Zeppelin probably will be passing here. I don't know that he has much adjustment to do. Grimaldis has one more share he can buy, but he's not in the game anymore. It'd be nice if they floated my CNO back up. Not going to be enough to give me the game, unfortunately. He's selling the B&M. Does he buy another CNO? He does. Oh, okay. Well, that's nice for me. And I think everybody will be happy to pass here now. Into the last set of operating rounds. And hopefully this will be very fast. This game has really dragged. Erie, no real track delay. in theory, the B&O does have some track it can lay towards Detroit, but with 3 operating rounds and probably no help from the CPR, I don't see much purpose there. I think we're just going to be running our trains. PRR does have a ton of cash. Not entirely sure where he's going to look. I guess I could look to help the CPR with the B&O if I lay this track, and, well, it's going to be too many operations, I think. So if I were to lay this, there's actually not even the track I need, so we will just be, actually, might as well at least try and head down towards Detroit. B&M should really just be clicking through. There's nothing interesting going on here. And I think at this point, everyone should just be clicking through. If the CPR is interested in helping towards Detroit, then I will lay that track, but otherwise I'll just be clicking for the end of the game. Is the CPR going to lay any track? He lays it on B14, so just giving himself a way past that DIT, which will help him a little bit. So I'm fairly certain I've lost this game, and I am. So Zeppelin is about $500 ahead of me and running for just a few bucks more, so I missed my opportunity to win with the dump on the C&O. Well played to Zeppelin. This was a very strange game, especially in the beginning. I was pretty confident that I was going to be able to win it, but kind of fumbled at the end there. Badaboom, I think that he unfortunately probably should have withheld on one of his companies and tried to get some better trains, or potentially have dumped the company. But he didn't play terribly, just, the way the trains broke, and the fact that he was left with the NYC and the Erie. They are not the most synergistic companies because of the competition for Rochester. I think that looking back to the early game, probably one of the players should have tried to take the C&O from me. Me getting the the B&O. Me getting the B&O and the C&O has really great synergy. So in terms of critiquing my own play, I think losing the token on Pittsburgh really hurt me, and then being forced, or in my mind, forced token in Lancaster was also pretty devastating. I don't know in retrospect if it was actually necessary for me to token in Lancaster. Maybe Zeppelin would have been incentivized enough to lay this track with this $120 instead of this track, but I was really worried about that risk. I think that if I don't secure the token and some of the other players get there, I end up in probably a 3rd place or maybe even last place, as opposed to a pretty close 2nd place. Not that places really matter that much, but that's my motivation for laying that token and hurting myself. So I end up losing by 300 bucks. I think if I had been given the opportunity to dump the C&O, I would have won. But as I mentioned, Badaboom did have the opportunity to block that, so it wasn't really a guaranteed thing, but it's definitely something that I neglected by playing a little bit too carelessly. So thanks for watching. This will end up being a long video. I hope it's worthwhile, and we may bring some live play back in the near future.